I'm Sharon Wilsie.
And I'm Laura Wilsie.
And we've been getting some really nice responses from people that listen to the interview with Wendy Murdoch and some of the more recent webinars that we've done. And the meditation by the river that we put out last week, the week before. So we do get some questions regularly, and I thought I would answer a few of those questions. And one of the big ones that has come up a lot, not directly horse related, but related to how do we do this thing that we're talking about that's having the insides and the outsides match. So it's called congruency, and it just means that what I'm thinking and feeling and it matches my actions. Okay, so when you approach a horse and you're not congruent, so you're kind of turning on something here, but you're trying to look like you're calm here, they can tell immediately. They can tell what you're really feeling because they're a prey animal, and prey animals survive by reading if the lion is approaching because they're hungry, or if the lion is completely full and they're just walking that way and you don't need to run away from it. Okay, so that's a very, very basic analysis, but they're good at reading the congruency. Okay, so when we're approaching them, it's really important that we have some, that our insides and our outsides match. That being said, right now, your insides might be going, ah! Right? So you probably are trying to make your outsides.
It's like, oh, everything we're good, horse.
I just want to brush you. Yeah. Okay.
Help.
Yeah. Which is totally reasonable.
Yeah.
So what we want to say is very simple. Basically, think about not just manufacturing a kind of calm. I talk a lot about being zero, and zero is not the lack of energy. Zero is actually an energized state. You're present. You're really aware of what's going on. And so when you're approaching your horse and you're trying to be zero, you're not trying to be nothing. You're needing to become congruent with your breathing and your thinking. So your breath and your thoughts need to go together. And that's basically what 90% of breathing exercises are all about. When we are thinking, we tend to hold our breath. Not exactly sure why. Maybe someone out there can post some comments. But when we're really lost in thought, we tend to hold our breath. So when you start to create deeper breath, you also tend to relax your thinking. So these things kind of go together, all right? As far as being emotionally congruent around a horse, meaning that what I'm feeling and what I'm doing line up, basically think about being honest. It's pretty much that simple.
The first day when we found out that our trip to Germany got canceled due to this virus, I went out to the horses, and everyone individually that I took for a walk said, I am not feeling really good today, guys. I'm really sorry. There's been a lot of stress going on and our whole world just got flipped over. And the horses really listened, and they were really appreciative of me just being honest with them instead of just, stomping around and just, it was just really, and for myself also, just to speak out loud about what I was feeling also helped just the energy move. And, walking in the woods was really helpful for me to be able to get into that state of zero as close as possible.
So with that in mind, there's a lot of teaching that not only myself, but a lot of horse people teach of not talking out loud, really learning how to pay attention to your movements and what you're doing. And that's true, because if we start sort of talking like blah, 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 we sort of tune out what our body language is doing. So it's not wrong to talk to your horse. Okay. It's actually helpful to become congruent.
I wasn't chatty with them. I just, at the beginning, I'm like, hey, this is what's going on for me. And then we did our quiet walk, because sometimes when we do start chatting and going, then we're all in our head, and then we lose the sensations in our body. So we may be missing something, and that's the congruency that Sharon's talking about.
Right. And there have been some situations where I'm working with a student and their horse, and I can tell they're trying really hard to figure something out. And for some reason, their thoughts and their actions are just not lining up. And I'll say, just pause, take a breath, and look at your horse and tell your horse whatever it is. Like, I really want to get this right. I don't understand you at all. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Whatever it is. And the most amazing thing is 90% of the time, unless the horse is panicking or they're having some issue, the horses just go, they look at them, they breathe, and they go, no kidding.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that they understand verbal speech. Maybe they do. I don't know. I can't say for sure one way or the other.
But words do have feeling.
Yeah.
If you just say love versus hate, I felt open and lovely, and then hate, I felt like a sinking feeling in my belly. So just that simple comparison really, there's a lot of studies about horses being empathic. And so they are really, I feel they're feeding off of the words that we're saying, because they do have that feel with them.
Well, when you say, that's a really good point. When you say a word, there's micro gestures that change in your body. Your breath pattern changes. If you say love, your eyes shift, like pupils dilate a little bit, and the blood comes to your face. And when you say, anger, you do this and that, withhold. So thinking those words also has the effect on your biorhythms, whether you know it or not. And that's all they've got to read. Really, that's all that they're tuning into is, what are you doing with your gestures and your breathing? And that's how they're determining, what kind of leader showed up for me today. So if you show up and you're like, then they, in their mind, that's the leader I've got today. Okay, watch me.
Not breathing.
And they'll get tense too.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And in fact, just unloading and showing up, and maybe even keeping a barrier between you and the horse. One of the things I don't recommend is patting your horse and telling them, because then you're sort of discharging. You're going like, and then I felt this, and then I felt that, and we wouldn't like that either.
Yeah. Please.
Okay. So maybe, like if I'm really sharing my feelings with somebody, I don't hang on them and share. I just tell them.
Yes.
And then after, maybe there's a hug. And I feel like a lot of times horses are that way. Now, if your horse comes to you and starts to beckon you, make soft facial gestures, and maybe they start to wrap their head and neck, or they start to sniff you, and they're leaning the shoulder in, and they're quieting and getting soft and breathing deep, blinking their eyes. Yes. And those are signals that say, it's okay. Come on over. Let's snuggle. That's fine. I'm good.
Yeah.
But sometimes horses will do this and go into a neutral posture, like, oh, I'm here for you. Let me go neutral, and you be you, and I will be really still, and I'll, listen to you on that level. And again, I'm not saying they're listening to the language, the word language, but they're listening to your gestures. They're listening to your breath. They're listening to the fact that you're becoming congruent.
And they're seeing facial features change.
Right. So the best thing you could do is actually spend a few minutes and just talk about what's going on and what's really happening for you when you arrive, when you're near your horse, before you touch them. Mm-hmm. And I find that oftentimes that quiets them, because when we show up and we take responsibility for what we're feeling, even say, I'm really trying to be zero, I'm having a hard time with it today. Mm-hmm. There's something in us that lets go of feeling guilty, feeling I'm not doing it right, feeling stressed. What if I want my horse to like me? All of the stressors.
Well, a lot of us do view our horse as our friends. So, you show up, and when you do speak with your friend, you're just like, hey, how's it going? And then, a lot of times we do get into maybe a little bit of what's going on in our life that's negative. And so we're asking the horse to, hey, can you just listen to me for just a moment? And then we'll just talk, and then we can talk about what you would like to talk about. Let's go for a walk in the woods, or, let's go play some games in the riding ring, or what have you. So.
And there was just a quick story. There was when I was teaching at the college, there was a girl who had brought her horse up for the semester. And she was saying that we were doing all this work together, but when I wasn't there and she would go get her horse, it was challenging. And she's like, Sharon, if you're not there, I'm having a hard time. So I said, okay, here's your work. When you arrive at the barn and I'm not there, you need to spend 5 minutes unloading on the outside of your horse's stall. Just kind of lean on the stall and just go blah, 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 blah. And you can feel whatever you need to feel, say whatever you need to, and observe your horse hanging out. Maybe she pays attention to you. Maybe she just eats her hay. It doesn't really matter, but that's your chance to unload, then take a breath, then get her out of the stall. And she came back to me the next day and she was like, that worked. That was great. She goes, not only that, but that was the best counseling session I ever had. Because the horse ended up sniffing her face and doing really sweet gestures with her, which she didn't normally do. So that was a good lesson for me also in making sure that people understand it's not about getting perfect and then arriving. It's about being able to have resources within yourself to say, I don't want to share stress. I'm here. I want to sit on my horse because that's the most peaceful place in the world for me. That's just the best feeling in the world. And I don't want to add any stress to them.
Especially for the folks out there that do have either they cannot go and visit their horse right now, or that they're very limited. So, you're like, oh, let's get a bunch of things done. And so, take a step back and really like check in with yourself so then you can show up and be the best version of yourself for them while you have that short period of time with them. We're blessed that we have our horses in our backyard. So, we're there for them and they're there for us. So, yeah,
definitely. And for those of you who know that Rocky got sick this year and was in the hospital for a while, I also got sick and was in the hospital for a while. That happened in the same week. So
that was a rough week.
It was a rough week. And before all this stuff.
Yeah.
So
back in November.
Yeah. So Rocky and I have made more of a movement to check in with each other.
She's stoic, just like her horse.
And he's stoic. And so we both had to get real about that.
Yeah.
And he'll literally do things now he's never done before with me, where I have asthma and I had a pretty severe asthmatic attack in November. And he will start sniffing my chest. He's never done that before. So he's checking me out and he's like, woman, should you even be out here?
Go back home.
And there has been times where he's looked back at the house and he's like, you get back, you don't sound good. You get back up there. And similarly, I'll go to him and I'm checking his gut and I'm doing some myofascial release or Reiki or whatever. And he's really showing me now. He never would demonstrate before. And now he's really like, yeah, I need a little right here, so that's a sweetness because we've become more vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that's really what being congruent is all about, is letting your guard down a little bit. Hopefully when you go to your horse, that's one place where you don't have to have all your guards up. And I think part of what we're trying to offer with Horse Speak is the communication that builds this rapport, that deepens that sweetness, so it is a place where you can let your guard down eventually. And this is a confusing thing, but we're always talking about healthy boundaries because healthy boundaries helps to create better bonding. Because if you have leaky boundaries and you don't know where the edges are, then
I don't want to hang with her now.
Right.
She's like, pushing into me. And so, we do sometimes get defensive when the horse is pushing into our space. And that's where a lot of the things we're teaching is to have the 6-inch rule, and that the horse isn't allowed when you're walking, for
they can't just do this.
Come into your space.
And you can't just do this either.
It's a two-way street.
And it doesn't mean you can't snuggle up and hug them and kiss them and brush them and do all that stuff.
I go right full on with Jag, right up into her chest and hug her. And the cool part is, I scratch her with her as I'm hugging her entire neck, and she will press into me. Mm-hmm. And it's, I've had this horse since she was 6 months old, and, it's taken time and just listening to her. And
because there's days where she says no.
Yeah, she has been getting shocked by, she has to wear a blanket because she doesn't build enough coat for herself for our Vermont winters. And so she gets shocked from the blanket coming off, and then I'll touch her and then I shock her. And so then we spent the last few weeks trying to rebuild our relationship because she runs away from me. So, it's not perfect. I've been studying with Sharon for, 11 years. And, sometimes I make mistakes, and that's okay, because I have all the tools that Sharon has taught me to try to keep going forward. And that's what makes me so enthusiastic about sharing horse speak with everyone, is that I didn't have any horse experience really at all before. All I knew about horses, they're dangerous and stay away from their butt. So be able to have these specific tools, it's amazing. And it's, no matter what, if something bad goes wrong, I can try a bunch of things.
Yeah.
So thank you, Sharon.
No, thank you, because I don't know if you guys know this, but without Laura, this wouldn't go forward.
Well,
So,
without you, it wouldn't have ever happened. So
yeah, so
it's a good team.
we just wanted to bring the couple of these ideas to you, and boundaries was one of the ideas, and being congruent, and how can I be zero in times like this. So those were some of the top questions, and why are boundaries so important. And so part of taking responsibility for ourselves, and it models the horse taking responsibility for themselves also. And that might sound unrealistic in some cases, but my experience is that horses will step up to having more responsibility for what they're doing in their space, and actually being careful with us. Instead of us having to micromanage them, they can grow up, and they can become a really mature partner. So it's not just partnership, it's mature partnership. And part of that is being honest, part of that is being vulnerable, and part of that is having a really healthy boundary, and the desire to go to zero. So maybe you can't get there all the time, but you can try.
Yeah.
All right. So we just wanted to, give that little supportive advice out there to people who've asked those questions.
Absolutely. And if there's anything else you want to know, we're open to, we want to give you more information and talk about our experiences, and help you along with your relationship so you can have an epic time with your horse. So comment below, and we look forward to chatting with you again.
Thanks.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Take care, y'all.